you jump at once. And that was? Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Amy Jane McWilliam with Island Coast. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. At this time, we'll take public comment from any non-DAC members on agenda items. Seeing as we have none, I will give the floor over to Ms. Gittens for a board update. And while we're doing that, our person from the West Zone that was elected by us to be on the school site selection committee ended up not being able to participate. So when Ms. Gittens finishes, we're going to need to elect a new representative to the school site selection committee from the West Zone. So if you're from the West Zone, please think about whether that's a role you could fill. Do we know what the date of that meeting is, Cassie?
Yes, the new meeting has been rescheduled for February 27th at 5:30 here at the building. February 27th at 5:30 here at this building. So think about that so we could do a quick vote or take a volunteer after Ms. Gittens. Do you have a mic? Or?
No, I'm going to borrow yours.
Absolutely great.
Okay, thank you. Do you all mind if I sit? Can everybody see me? Okay. You charge extra for the cheap seats, right? Okay, I am going to take my first 30 seconds and open up the floor to anyone that has a question for me. If it's too hard, I'll just cry, so go ahead. Anyone have any questions as to anything we're doing or that you want us to do or that's happening with the school board? Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am.
What's happening with all of these threats? What are happening to the students that are making all of these? Repeat the question.
Okay, the question is what's happening to all the students that are getting arrested and all with the threats. The agreement with the Sheriff's Department and the school district is that it was basically that, you know, you make the threat and they're going to follow through. One of the things, and I'm sure you see most of them on the news, and I was kind of concerned at first of the kids that were like 12 and 13 being on the news, but what I was told is that if it's a felony, then it's different. If it's, you know, a misdemeanor, then they don't necessarily have to show their faces. One of the things, and they are getting prosecuted if they're found guilty, and I hope that you have seen that it started to go down a little bit. We expected, because kids will be kids, that once we put the word out there, or if you do this, you know, you'll get arrested. Like, okay, let's see, try it. And a lot of them, you know, as my mother used to say, don't believe the fat meat is greasy. So they would just get out there to try it. Unfortunately, they got caught up in it, and they do have a record. So there are consequences, and most of the ones that did get arrested and were found guilty have had a price to pay for it.
What I'm asking is what kind of price, because a couple of DAC meetings ago it was all about mental health, taking care of mental health issues. And if these kids are sent to call Success Academy or whatever, and then they're put back in the schools, or maybe they can't go back to that school, but they're put in another school or whatever.
If they have a record, and any principals or law enforcement can probably say this, if you get a felony, you're probably going to DJJ, which is juvenile justice, and you're in the system.
For approximately how long?
I am not sure. You know, we can. Oh, go ahead. They will, even with a felony? Yes. Okay, okay. So I was correct. Awesome. And let me just say this one thing before he comments. the other part that I wanted to make sure, and I kept saying to the superintendent and all, we need to make sure that people understand there is, in a lot of these situations, there is a mental health piece that's involved. And that we don't just call the police and say, come take this person away. The administrators are involved, and the counselors, and a whole team of people are involved. It's not just that we're trying to do a gotcha on our kids. And yes, sir.
I agree with what the young lady said to begin with, because even on the media, you hear people talking about consequences. Consequences and conversations that parents have with their kids will be determined later, not by a child getting arrested. Later, what happens to the child. That's what parents will talk to their kids about. Look what happened to that kid. And that's what I think a lot of parents are concerned about right now. Other than that, I have a solution, which
Please.
I've been a big proponent of this for many, many years. I don't understand how difficult it would be to have in the Lee County School District, in every school, a suggestion box. A suggestion box, one for students and one for teachers. And it be a suggestion box that is not on camera. Now, yes, your suggestions box is going to be full of a lot of bad things. But if it prevents one of these things from happening, because kids, they don't want to talk to the SROs. They don't want to talk to their parents, but they're very concerned about everything from kids dealing drugs to these threats that are happening to untold things that the school district could save. I can not tell you how much money they would save on legal fees if the principals and administrators were given a heads up to something happening within the school. Right. Just from a suggestion box. It's just, hey, let's keep an eye on this. Hey, let's watch for this. There's so many things that can come from just a suggestion box that could possibly be opened at the SAC meetings and with the principal that only certain people have keys to. It's just, I think it would be such an easy way to avoid a lot of legal hassles and to get the kids that are in trouble some attention toward them.
And,
Thank you for listening.
And let me just say in response to that, I mean, sounds like a great idea. I'm not sure which school you're connected to, but perhaps at your SAC meeting you could bring that up and to give that a try. We also have the Fortify Florida app, and a lot of the situations were circumvented because the students did use the app and did say, what happened. Okay, last one real quick, yeah.
Just in response to that, I get nervous because kids still, having been a former high school teacher, at least at the high school level, the kid who's innocently, anonymously going to the suggestion box is still going to be seen by someone, maybe not a camera, and they don't know what's on the note, but there's still that unknown.
Well, and that's why, and thank you for that, that's why the Fortify Florida app is really, I mean, all the kids have phones, so they can possibly do that. Okay, one quick question, anything else that's? Fortify Florida app. And we can put it on the minutes so that when you look at the minutes, you'll be able to see it. As far as what we're doing, there's a lot of things going on. One of the things that I want to admonish you to do, how many people in here from District 5? Can I see your hand? Anybody from District 5? Don't tell me we don't have anybody. Lehigh, Alva, okay. Yep. All of you all with your hands up real high. Okay, thank you. We need people to volunteer for advisory boards. A lot of times we hear people complaining about, oh, why'd they do this, why'd they do that. Get involved. I need people that I can say, okay, put this one on. And one of the things that I have been really fighting for is to make sure that each district has an equal amount of representation. And I will tell you, when I first got on the board, I looked at the list, and on the finance committee, we didn't have anybody from District 5. So they said, oh, we don't have anybody that volunteered. Well, the next week we had 3 people from District 5. But I need you to go on to the school website, go into where it says advisory boards, and there's an application. Excuse me. And if you know of someone that may be good for some of these advisory boards, have them go on. And I think they give you 4 or 5 different options. You can put your first, your second, your third choice. And right now I'm looking for somebody for curriculum. So if you have a friend that you know, wants to help out and do something, then make sure that they go online and look at it. The other thing is we have board meetings, we have workshops, we have briefing meetings. All of that is online under the meetings. Look at it before our meetings and see if it's something that you want to make sure you come here to be a part of. So I will be around for a while if you have other questions, but in future I will open it up at least for one question at the beginning so that you can ask me firsthand what's going on. But watch the board meetings especially. You can go online. I'll know you're there because the number will go up. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody from the West Zone who would like to represent the District Advisory Council at the School Site Selection Committee meeting? February 27th?
Correct, yeah.
It'll be
At
here at this
5:30,
building.
right?
5:30.
Yep.
West Zone. We have from the other 2 zones already accommodated.
5:30.
5:30.
Yay!
And we have unanimously elected our representative.
Your name, please? Oh, yeah.
Is our second for the minutes. All right, without further ado, we have quite a team assembled here from the Transportation Department, if I'm saying that correctly, Division, Department, Conglomeration, and they're going to present to us about our wonderful Lee County School District transportation system.
Thanks.
Fun tonight.
I guess the challenge will be if everybody's still clapping at the end. So, I do have a brief overview for those that have been here before, and I know Mr. Erickson's been here many years. We've been doing this for a while. And it's a general overview. It'll give you some good information, background information on the Transportation Department and really how large we are. We're the 16th largest in this country as far as transporting kids. So we are up there with the number of kids we transport. So we're going to go through this. Be patient. It'll be quick. I actually cut it down because I've learned most of you guys have questions, and they're all going to relate to late buses. Yep. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time going through here, but I do want to give ample time so I can answer the questions you're going to have.
Uh-oh.
Might be a lot quicker than I thought.
Thank you.
We're in trouble if I can't even turn one on.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
Seeing their life. I know.
Our job is fairly simple, at least in writing. If you look through the school board policy, we have 7.01 to 7.04. It's 10 pages. It's easy read. Nice big font. It is not that much, and when you read it, it really does seem a lot more simple than what it is. So our primary purpose for transportation is to provide safe and efficient services at the lowest possible cost. Sounds good in theory, but it does get much more difficult, and we're going to go through there, and I'll try to explain as we go. Transportation at this time, as far as departments go, we're the second largest. We have over 1,200 employees. So that's bus operators, sub-operators, bus attendants, routers, dispatchers, supervisors, zone directors, which I'm sure plenty of you guys have spoken to. So they're there, but we are really the second largest department within the school district. There are 4 bus compounds. This gets confusing. We have 3 zones that you guys, you're in the DAC, you're involved, you guys understand that. But we actually have the 6 Mile compound, which is in the south zone. We have the west zone, which is out in the Cape. If you think about the river dividing the county, west zone is out in the Cape. Their compound is right behind Mariner High School. So it's right there. And then the east zone, which is your Lehigh area, actually has 2 compounds. It's still the east zone, but they have 2 smaller compounds, Buckingham and Leonard. We have an office staff, and that goes under the 1,200 employees of 60. Garage staff, 65. Each one of those 4 compounds also has a shop. So we have the 4 shops at each one of these compounds. They actually take care of our fleet. And then we also have another garage on Canal Street, and that deals with our white fleet. And we have about 600 white fleet. So your driver's ed vehicles, your supervisor vehicles, your maintenance vehicles, trailers, any kind of tractors, lawnmowers, all of that goes through the Canal Street shop. Regular bus operators, 706. Regular bus attendants, 207. So these are full-time employees that the district employs. Sub-bus operators, 117. It's an interesting number. We're going to go through our subs because that'll help explain some of the situations here with the late buses. And the sub-attendants, they're in the same category. We have 67 of those. Daily miles traveled, over 66,000. That comes out to 12.4 million. That is route miles. And this is where it starts getting tricky. This is just getting kids to and from school. But we also do all the field trips. We also have CBI trips, which are community-based instruction for ESE kids out of high school. We have pre-K speech programs that happen during the day. Every middle school gets 2 activity buses. High schools get activity buses. Then all the sporting events, all the MPAs for the music, the choral programs, you get the ROTC programs. So that's all in addition to what we do strictly to and from school. Gallons, I like to see when the fuel goes down a couple pennies, because a few pennies dips saves us quite a bit of money. It's a good thing. Bad thing, and when it heads the other direction, we also get killed because we go through 15,000 gallons a day of diesel. So again, 180 days, you're looking at 2.8 million. The few extra miles, if you do the math. We have summer school as well. We provide transportation for summer school. Eligible students, those are 67,000 that are eligible. We transport just under 50,000. So the difference there, you get a lot of the high school kids actually drive to school. A lot of the elementary schools have before school programs. Parents drop them off, the rest of that. But we do have 67,000 that are eligible. They're the work studies, field trips, sporting events are there. So the daily buses, those are the daily bus routes, and actually that's gone down to. We're down to 751. But at the time it was 753. These change every day. So the bus routes, you got 3,200. That has to do with all our buses. We have a 2-tiered system. So all our buses actually do 2 schools. So if I'm out in the East Zone, I might drive Riverdale High School, drop the kids off at 6:45. I then might have a River Hall. So then I go pick up the elementary school kids to get them to River Hall. So all our buses have at least 2. We're doing our best. It's more efficient if I can get 3, but obviously there's a time factor in there, and we definitely don't want them to be late. Stop locations, 6,900. Daily stops, 36,000. So we stop quite often, quite often. And then here's the one that really catches people by surprise is we do over 100,000 route changes every year. So our routers, the mobility of our students here, anytime they move, we're rerouting buses, and every time it's a domino effect. So if a student moves in and I add them to a bus, well, that changes the times for everybody. So now we have to reroute the bus, we have to put the new changes in time, we've got to send it to the school, send it to the parents, and get them out. Well, we have to do that over 100,000 times a year. So again, very fluid with the numbers as far as the changes go. Now, this is where it's starting to get into what we do and why we do it. We do train our bus drivers. We have a CDL training facility. It's out in the West Zone. It's attached to Mr. Purdue's compound. People can come. We will pay them to get a CDL. We are in desperate times. We simply don't have the drivers. And again, I'm saving the good stuff for the end here. We've trained thousands of drivers, which is true. That's over the years. And the district is a third-party tester. School buses, a moving traffic signal. The law gives us the right to stop traffic. Okay? I know safety, like I said, two things that are gonna or should be a priority. I'm a parent of 4. My kids ride the bus. Two things, the timeliness of the bus and the safety. That's really what parents are looking for. So that's why we've kind of cut this down. All our buses are inspected every 30 days. That's a state mandate. We document anything ever happens. And we've had accidents where we've had to go 12 years. The bus was 12 years old, gets in an accident, and we've had to pool our records from 12 years ago. So we have to have every 30-day inspection on hand. There's 64 feet of reflective tape, strobe lights. I'm sure you guys have seen them. Believe it or not, I get more complaints from community on those strobe lights at 5:30 in the morning. That they wake me up. Can you route the bus another way? Can you do this? Can you do that? It's amazing. They are all equipped with stop arms, and if you've been paying attention, that's been real popular now about putting cameras on the stop arms to try to get the people that are passing our stop arms. This is something we're quite proud of. We've never had an accident caused by mechanical failure. And really, if the shop foreman was here, or the director, I'd probably give him kudos. So we haven't had any accidents due to mechanical failure. This is straight from the DOE handbook for our, we use it in our curriculum class, what we call our bus driver class right here. But when I want to say school, let's see, we call them the safety department from within transportation. District has a safety department. We in transportation also have a safety department. Every stop that we make, every stop location, actually has a checklist that we have to go through and we check off. And we have a safety department that's been trained. They go through, they keep these checklists, and we have to keep these on file. And we get audited every year that comes through. They randomly check, and they go through these. So there must be 200 feet of uninterrupted visibility between the front and the rear of the bus. Stop should be located at least 200 feet following an intersection or 50 feet from the corner before entering an intersection. We get phone calls a lot of times that say, oh, why are you stopping mid-block? Why aren't you picking the kids up at the corner where I'm at? Parents like to drive, park on the side of the road. There's a reason for it. Our routers have strict guidelines. The safety department double checks them. So you need to be 200 feet following an intersection. Must be, excuse me, at least 200 feet apart. Students should have room to wait safely off the roadway. This is a big one. And everybody has a different opinion. What is safe? The state says 4 feet. So if you think about 4 feet, that's not much. It's a sidewalk. So as long as it's flat ground, now obviously we always, if we're going to err on the side of the safety for the kids. So we're going to do what we can as far as that goes. Safest place for students to wait may be on the side of the roadway opposite the pickup point. Actually, we just had this situation come up this afternoon here in the South Zone. McGregor Boulevard is a perfect example. You're coming down McGregor. When we stop the vehicle, we can pick up door side, but we also pick up kids on the other side. So we will have kids waiting on one side, waiting on the other side, and that's why it's so imperative with the stop arms. We stop traffic in both directions. The driver sees the traffic is stopped here, sees the traffic is stopped behind him, and then he guides the students across to come. So, for safety reasons, there are times that we do pick them up in opposite directions. Change stops only with supervisor's permission. That's coming from there. That way we have somebody that can go out there. We don't make changes unless we put eyes on it. So if we get a request to go in there, we're going to check on it just to make sure. And it's recommended that no bus be placed in a turning lane or acceleration lane. When you get into that acceleration lane or the turning lane, parents don't see that as a lane and they like to zip around. So we don't put them in to the turning lane, which also becomes a problem because parents say, hey, you're not putting it outside our gate, you're putting it 200 feet, 300 feet down the road. Well, it's because there's a turning lane. So a lot of times we're just unable to, by state guidelines, to put them where parents would like them. Here's board policy 7.02. Another one that we have to explain to the parents. Students may be required to travel up to 1.5 miles to a designated stop. Most direct traveled route measures the 1.5 distance to and from the bus stop. Such distance shall be measured from the assigned bus stop. We also go from where private and public roadways meet. This comes up when you have a gated community where a parent says, look, my child has to walk 2.5 miles to the stop. Well, really, the child has to walk 1.5 miles within your development to get to the front gate. But the stop is really 2 blocks away from your front gate. So what we do is we measure from where private and public roads meet, and that's where you'll get it. And that, you know, Google Maps is great, MapQuest is great, that's where they get their measurements from, but they usually go from the address, and it's really where public and private meets. Winding down, because this has to do with lateness of buses. This is our routing breakdown. Every zone has a general router, a special needs router, and a data specialist. So all of the zones have it. If you look at Buckingham and Leonard, again, it's one zone. It's the East Zone. So they have their special needs router sitting at one compound and their gen ed router at the other compound. But each zone will have 2. Map of the zones. This was in there. We've kind of left it in there just in case there was a question. Usually comes up as far as the length of a route. So basically all this is saying is we have 3 zones, and that's not the best of maps, so I apologize. I really apologize if you're colorblind, because then that becomes real confusing. But those are the 3 zones. Each zone is split up into 3 subzones, and you can choose a school, and this is where it's getting into school choice a little bit, but you can choose a school in the zone you live in any bordering zone. So if you're in subzone 2, you can choose a school in subzone 2. You can do a school in subzone 1 or a school in subzone 3. Where this becomes important, if you are in the South Zone and you're in subzone 1, and that's down in Bonita, you can choose a school down in subzone 1. You can choose a school in subzone 2, but you cannot choose a school in subzone 3. Okay, and we've tried to shorten the rides there with the subzones. Which gets to the good part. How many people are experiencing late buses? No. Not so much anymore. You must have a driver that's here. All right. It's a simple math problem. We simply do not have the drivers to cover the routes. Okay, with absenteeism, with FMLA, for the rest of that, we are losing drivers quicker than we can hire them. We pay drivers now $14.29 an hour. As the economy has picked up, we're losing drivers because their CDL license, they can go make $23, $24 an hour to go drive dump trucks, waste management, any kind of construction vehicles. So what's happening is our drivers are going to better paying jobs. And we know that, the district knows that. We've got a plan in place. Actually, we have a tentative agreement that they're looking at a starting rate that is going to increase significantly starting July 1st. So we are absolutely doing everything we can. You'll see a booth at the fair advertising for bus drivers. If anybody here knows somebody who needs a job, please send them our way. I can tell you 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when there was a recession, I had more drivers than I knew what to do with. Everybody needed a job, so the line was out the door and around the corner. But what's happening now is the economy's doing so well, we do struggle to get drivers. So that ultimately, that's the quick, short answer of it, is that we're struggling to keep our drivers. So if you look at our subs, look like we had 117 subs. Sub drivers tend to be retirees from up north. A lot of them don't need to work. A lot of them do it, give them something to do, supplement a retirement income. Subs are great workers. We couldn't do this without the subs, but they are subs. So what happens is, around Christmas time, they go back up north to see their family. Well, they don't have anything keeping them here. So they can leave the first week of December and not come back till the second week of January. And then when they have kids or family members that come down to visit them, they call off or they don't come in because they're subs. They don't have to. So you have subs that are listed, but we might see them once or twice a week. Hey, I don't want to work Fridays. I don't want to work Mondays. I'll work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So even the sub numbers are a little deceiving as they get there. So we are struggling, and we know we're struggling. And nobody gets up and says, hey, I want to do an okay job today. I can tell you right now, not my position. The zone directors will agree with me wholeheartedly. The people that deserve all the credit in the world are my dispatchers. They have to put up with all the phone calls. You know, you have 4 lines coming in. If you have one late bus, think about 45, 50 parents calling, hey, where's my bus? So they're trying to look on GPS. They're trying to call on the radio. They're trying to get coverage. They really do their best. And again, they probably are not told enough, and that comes back on us. But everybody there truly is trying their very best to get those kids there. And it's tough. I know we need to continue to do better. Absolutely. On bad Fridays, I can tell you there was a Friday before Martin Luther King weekend, we had 162 drivers not come in. 162 drivers. So, if you remember earlier, I said all our buses are 2-tiered, so they have 2 schools. If we're short, say at Riverdale, I'll do the afternoons because the middle school How many middle school parents here? And I've got one. You guys are the last tier, the 4 o'clock, you get killed. And I hear from my wife, and then I get to hear from my little 6-year-old tell me about being crowded and being late. So I know, I definitely know. But what happens is if I'm missing a bus, we're gonna say 45 kids just for simple math. And we have to get those kids home from high school. So what I do is, I don't have a driver. So I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna take 15 kids and I'm gonna put them on bus A. I'm gonna take the next 6 stops, which is about 15 kids, and I'm gonna put them on bus B. And then I'm gonna take the last 15 and put them on bus C, so we can get them off the Riverdale ramp and get them home. It sounds good. Those parents are okay because, they're about 25 minutes late. But that means each and every one of those 3 buses that I just put, what we call coverage buses, put kids on, now they're 40 minutes late getting to their next school because they're in an area that they usually don't go to. So we route the buses to where when I finish dropping off kids, saying I keep going back to Riverdale, but you can go to South High. From South High, then we pick up for Villas Elementary. It's kind of in the area. We pick a couple neighborhoods off Daniels on the way into town, and we drop them off at Villas. But if that South Fort Myers bus I now had to take south, now it's got to turn around and come back. So every time we need to cover and we put kids on, we are making 2, 3, 4 other buses late. And it's a domino effect. So who gets it worse is the middle school parents. 4 o'clock is tough. What makes things worse is then you get the athletics at high school at 5 o'clock that need to be picked up. Football practice is over, basketball practice, wrestling. So everything's a domino effect, but it all stems, honestly, from one problem. And I've been here when we've had enough drivers. Life's pretty easy. Going back to, school board policy 7.01, safe and efficient transportation, safe and timely. It's easy when you have the drivers. When you don't have the drivers, it's difficult. And to be honest, it's unless you can raise the rate high enough that people want to come in, it's tough to keep them. And that's what the school district is now trying to do, and they've always have, but it does get expensive. It's tough. It's tough to do that. So we're going to open this up. I don't want to send these guys off to the groups yet, so I'll answer as best I can.
So can I just add for one quick second? I know that we're hearing from the group in the back with communications. They would love for us to come to the podium so we can identify ourselves and then also be available up here. So thank you very much.
Podium. I win.
Oh no, they're giving Eric.
I know, this is dangerous. I'm Eric Riemenschneider with Edison Park Elementary School. This may be obvious, or you may have already considered, but you said you did a lot of training, like you guys would give the CDLs to the new drivers. I didn't know if there was anything contractually you could do, to kind of lock them in for a year or two.
Actually, it goes in front of the board there, so if you want to turn around and see Ms. Giddens. Yes, we've done this in the past. Here's the tricky part of this. We've tried to, in the past, put in a non-compete clause, that we're going to go ahead and put a non-compete clause in. However, our lawyers, and we've gone through there, our competition would be a school bus driver. So you're looking at Collier County, you're looking at Charlotte County, you're looking at A&S. The charter school have a few positions, but we pay considerably more than they do, even at $14.29. So when we lose our drivers, it's not to other school bus driving opportunities. That's when we're not losing them to. However, we are going to see the next Tuesday, what we've written in now is they're going to have to pay back the cost of the fees that comes back if they don't stay for a year. So we are going to be able to reimburse some of that But again, for every driver we get, we more than pay for the ones leaving because of the overtime cost. And our overtime costs are going to be up there. For those people that like the numbers, our overtime costs are there. We can't do this job without overtime because we're asking people, you know, not only to run their routes, but then to come back and run another person's route or run an extra activity run. And then you got to think about Saturday, if anybody has kids in sports or they do band. If anybody, aside from me, was at the Edison Light Parade, you would have seen, I think we had 80 buses out there on Saturday. So we have activities like that that we drive all the time. So the hope is that we can train enough that we can absorb the cost of the people leaving. But yes, we are trying to recoup some of the money back.
My name is Daryl Eilenberg. I'm at River Hall Elementary. I'm the bus ramp supervisor, so I see everything firsthand. We got a few questions since we have you here, both from administration and from the teachers. First thing is we're seeing an influx of referrals from bus drivers, and they're very menial, like the kid was talking back to me, or the kid was looking at me wrong. I mean, to that extent. And our principal and administration have to sift through those. And it's taken up a lot of time. Now, our question is, like, for example, busing from the home to the school. We are not on there for any duration. So the transportation is responsible for getting the kid to and from the school. Now, why is it that the school is responsible for dealing with the discipline when they are not in school? That's one of our questions. The next is that we have one of our cleric typists that are in the school that primarily they're supposed to help parents answer phone calls. She is full-time calling both Leonard and Buckingham, figuring out what's going on, getting updates about kids' routes because they're not communicating with us. There's a huge communication issue. Most of the time we're told, what do you want us to do about it? Was their answer. Or if we're missing a bus, we get a generic answer of, it'll be there in 10 minutes. It'll show up 30 to 40 minutes later. You know, we're not getting accurate information. So we're dealing with that. On top of that, when those buses are late, which, by the way, our bell rings at 3:09, we have 22 buses at our school. 13 of them come after the bell. That's a lot. That's only 9 buses, and majority of those buses are E-buses that should be there early to pick up the kids. 2 of them don't show up until about 3:40, which is a problem. So we're dealing with that. On top of that, with buses not leaving till after 3:40, contractually, the teachers of our school are supposed to leave at 3:39, and they're stuck helping us watch the kids past contractual times. So there's an issue there that we're dealing with. So I know and I understand that you're dealing with low amount of drivers driving, but we have teachers that are sacrificing their time. Luckily, we haven't had any formal complaints with the union as far as them being past their time, because they're there for the kids and we appreciate everything that they do. But that shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't have to stay there because we're waiting for a bus at 3:40. Now, mind you, the biggest issue has been we seem to have to bribe the drivers to get there on time. When we started voicing our concerns and giving them incentives, they started showing up on time. I see that's a problem because that means, what were they doing before we started bribing them? Were they just sitting at McDonald's over by Buckingham and just chilling until about 3:30 when we let the buses go? I mean, it's the whole culture of transportation in the East Zone is very toxic. And we're dealing with a lot of issues that we should not be dealing with as teachers, as administrators, as staff. And it seems like from what we're hearing from transportation is we don't care. It'll get there when it gets there. When I talk to drivers, well, why aren't you here on time? Oh, I've got this route. I have one e-bus that goes all the way to the Cape that has to come all the way back to Alva to pick up our kids.
Excuse me,
Yes.
at some point here, you've asked one question, maybe a second, but we're kind of, well, respectfully, you're giving a speech at this point. You need to ask a question and then get answers, okay? And then we have to let some other people ask questions, please.
He's got a couple, and I do apologize. Absolutely, I do. Late buses again. We know that. We're working on that. Now, I didn't know about River Hall in particular, but I will most definitely look at it, and I'm sure Mr. McKinney over there is.
I sent them an email. They are very well aware.
All right, so we can do that. Now, communication, absolutely we can improve. If that's an issue, we'll get you open, honest communication. That's something we can control, and we will. So, you know, we've talked about this before. It's not acceptable to say, hey, 10 minutes just to get them off the phone if 10 minutes later they're calling. And I've been on the other end. I've been on the bus ramp for 40 minutes when it was only supposed to be 10. And then you try to explain to the parents, well, if I would have known, I would have taken them into the cafeteria, I would have taken them to the media center, I could have given them a snack. We could have done 1,000,001 other things. So I understand that, and we will work on the communication piece. Late buses, again, we're working on. We will definitely pull your school, and we'll see what the issue is. They should absolutely, obviously, not be sitting around doing that. The other issues with, when it comes to the behavior of the students, we train our drivers to drive that bus to and from. To be perfectly honest, the drivers, unless they physically hear it or see it, they're really not supposed to write them up. But the real issue here is they're not trained. And I've been there. You're a teacher. You've seen teachers come and go. You have teachers that have gone through 4 years of college. They've done student teaching, and they struggle just keeping 18 kids in front of them from not doing anything, to turn, to write on the board, the rest of that. So classroom management is a struggle for even people that have been trained for 4 years to be a teacher. Unfortunately, we do not have that type of training for our drivers. So if you can imagine at the end of a school day, a school bus driver sitting there with 50 kids behind them, and we say, keep your eyes on the road. I just want to get them home safely. So if they're trying to look back and discipline and write and get the whole stories, I would say 50% of the time, they are only getting one side of the story. The kids get off the bus and, hey, Johnny punched me. Well, you don't know if Johnny punched you because 3 kids get off and say, I saw Johnny punch him. And then the other one says, well, no, Johnny didn't punch her. She kicked him first. So it is, the schools take care of the discipline of the students, and then we discipline our drivers. Is the way it works. And we have videos. We have a video person that looks on it. So if the school says, hey, can you pull the video for this time? So-and-so got hit. We'll pull the video. We send it to the school, and then they handle it from there. But that's the procedure.
Mr. Lloyd, this is, I wanted to comment on this, if I may. I spent 18 years as a school-based administrator, and I'm going to weigh in on this. And there are other administrators in the room, so feel free to disagree with me if you feel this way. I wanted to know what my students were doing. I'll just be honest. When we had a child misbehave on the bus, as the principal, as the assistant principal, and even as a teacher, I was one of those strange birds, I'm sure, but I wanted to know when things were happening with my students. And so I would rather us work collaboratively so that we had the full picture. The other good news is my teachers and I knew the kids extremely well. Many times we knew the behaviors, we knew accommodations, we knew the parents really well. We had great connections there. And so I always, as an administrator and a teacher, wanted to know how my kids were on the PE field, in the cafeteria, on the bus, and in my classroom. And that's how I felt as a principal. So I just wanted to weigh in on why that approach seems to be the way we do business in this district, because we like to look at the child and see how they're functioning in all aspects. And I'll just reiterate what Mr. Lloyd just said. When you think about the bus drivers, they have a really, really big job. I always kind of laugh. We have 2 boys, and sometimes I struggle to drive when they're having their moment behind us, and you may experience that too as a parent when you drive. Can you imagine having 50 or 60 behind you as you're trying to focus on the road? And of course, their number one goal is safety, getting the kids picked up, making sure they get home safely. So I always found it as a school, yes, it is certainly more work, there's no doubt about it, but I would rather work with our students and understand who that child is and know the parents and be able to work on a permanent solution rather than somebody taking 5 minutes and making that bus even later to deal with that issue, if it rises to the level of a referral, and that's a fair enough statement. So just wanted to weigh in as a former principal.
Move on.
I mean, to the best as you could. So, I mean, I just, stuff that's being passed along to me, and I'm between my observations and observations of administration, I'm just sharing. We're very frustrated.
Okay.
And understandably so when we're hearing other schools in our zone not having the issues that we're having. So.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
we'll take the good out of that. I'm glad everybody's not experiencing what you are. But yes, we will get out there, and we will talk to the administration out there.
Okay.
We will.
And I mean, some of the responses that we've gotten from some of the administrators from our zone is, oh, we were out there, and we're out there all the time, and they'll tell us that they're out there when they're not. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where if you're going to say you'll be there, please be there. Please say hello to us so that we can talk. Not just say, oh, we saw from the distance, and we never introduced ourselves. So,
Fair enough.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello. My name is Amy Jane McWilliam, and I'm a parent with Island Coast High School. My daughter's in high school this year. Last year, she was at Mariner Middle, and that's when we had issues with the bus. And in the beginning of the year, we always expect there to be some things. My question is about communication, because at the beginning of the year, how you mentioned you have to take one bus and like divide it up into different buses. So you can imagine my daughter catches her bus at 5:50 in the morning, and so sometimes I would get a phone call at like 6:15ish, or maybe even earlier, and I'm trying to answer it, and I get a recorded robotic call, and it's like, I don't even, there are so many switches listed on the route, I don't even know what to tell my daughter. So it will say, it's not as simple like bus 1820 is now bus 1629. It's stops 1 through 10 are this, and I don't know what number stop we are. So I guess my question is, how can you communicate to parents maybe at the beginning of the year? I don't know, because you have 100,000 changes, like, what stop am I? So if we have this issue, I can text my daughter, okay, Emma, you're stop number 9, and you're gonna go on this bus, so look out for this bus.
That's a good question. Years ago, we used to post the routes. That actually was posted up there. We went through a safety audit, this was probably 7 or 8 years ago, which was determined that it was not the safest thing to do. So if you remember, we used to put it in the news press the week before school started. Schools used to post them up and wallpaper the gyms with them. They used to be online so you could check, but now it's recommended that you do not post any of the routes out there, just for safety reasons. But what you're saying is a good point, and I think every child gets a postcard or looks up their stop, and it'll say the corner of Southwest 32nd and North Street or something. Maybe I can look at that as far as the reporting goes and actually put stop number 12, stop number 14. So that might be something that we can do. I have to look with our software program and our routing department to see if that's something that we can put out there for you guys to use. I'm not saying I can get it done, I can look.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
you bring up a good point, and I'm going to ease into this because I'm sure it's going to come up, if not now, in the breakout sessions. That same issue is why people struggle with where's the bus at.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Some parents absolutely think it's the best thing in the world. Yeah, there you go. These are the people that it works for. Here's the glitch in that program, and this is the first year we've tried it, and we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to get it out there. We know we're short drivers. You know, we knew this was coming, so we've tried to get out in front of it. The problem with Where's the Bus at? It is great if I can do a one-to-one switch. Bus A is not going to be there. It broke down, so I'm going to put it on Bus B. And for the people that it's worked, you've probably seen it. On the bottom, it'll say Bus 1522 equals 1786 today. And you can watch 1786, and life is grand. The problem is, or the glitch is, it can only do a one-to-one switch. So when I cover a bus with 3 buses, Where's the Bus app doesn't work. So now the question comes up is, so why don't you just do a one-to-one switch? Excuse me. Problem is a one-to-one switch, it might take me an hour and a half to get back to that stop. So if I make that call and say, we're going to switch Bus A with Bus B, but Bus B can't start for another 50 minutes, those kids are going to miss quite a bit of instructional time. Where if I have the dispatchers call out, hey, I need some coverage buses. Anybody in the area of this street and this street, can you pick up these 3 stops for this school? And you're right, wherever she is. Then what we're doing is, in the mornings, a lot of times we can get kids dropped off, even if their bus isn't there. They might only be 10 or 15 minutes late. We can swing a bus around, pick them up, and get them back into school, which is what we've decided is in the best interest of the kids. But in doing so, we get quite a few phone calls that I was looking for the bus, it never showed up. But there comes a point that we make that, you know, either they're going to be waiting for an hour and 20 minutes, or they can only wait 15 minutes if we can divide them over 3 or 4 buses. But that's the problem with that app. Now, like I said, if you're fortunate enough to have a route where your driver shows up every single day, life is good. You don't have a late bus. Bus app, when they are, the bus is getting inspected once a month, so they have a spare bus that day. It shows up, everything works fine. So we are working on that. I don't know if there's a good answer. We've talked about the same thing. If we can number the routes, which the stops are numbered, but I don't know if we can put that into the system. So we'll look into it.
My name is Harrison Schultz. I'm at Tanglewood Elementary. I just had a quick question. I was really just wondering for myself. With the bus numbers, look, why are they so different? If there's 753 buses, why is, 1285 now 1787? I mean, when I've walked kids out to the bus, sometimes the bus says 697, and then on the flippy numbers it says 1292, and then on a piece of paper written in magic marker it says 1874. So that's the first question. And the second one is, when there's, let's say a late bus, if you have to make changes, is it usually one route that always gets the changes, or one bus? I swear, they call me for bus 1088 2 times a week. I don't know if it's like a lemon or what you guys are doing about that.
Again, I do apologize on that. Bus numbers. Actually, the first 2 numbers you can tell, those are going to be the years the bus was purchased. So a 1500 was bought with 215, 16, 17, 18, and we have 1900s on there. So there's where you're going to get your first 2 numbers, and then we go, 1901, 1902, 1903. So when you take a look at that, you'll see the bus numbers on there. Actually, believe it or not, we still have some that are 98, 982. So you can always tell how old your bus is now, or the bus in front of you that's going through. You can look at the number and say, well, I know when they purchased that bus. So yes. So you can tell that. On the side of the bus, my drivers should be putting down the numbers on there. Not all the buses have the signage on the side to flip and change. So you will see a lot of the drivers actually put it up into the window. So unfortunately, yes, you see the bus, the number painted on the bus, you see the number on the side, and then something hanging, and it's all different. We are working with that. We train them every year what to do. What the drivers are supposed to do if they pull up to a bus stop. If you noticed, we have 6,900 bus stops, or stop locations, I should say. So we try to use the same locations, but we stop 36,000 times. So one stop location might have 5 or 6 schools. If I have anybody from Danforth Lakes here, I talk to them. We have 14 buses in the morning and 14 in the afternoon. So it does get confusing. Okay, who are you here for? So we train our drivers when they open up the door. They're supposed to announce what bus they are. Hopefully, with consistency with the driver, they get to know the kids, they get to go from there. But again, that's something we absolutely can talk to the drivers about, try to get some consistency as far as the numbers go.
Thanks.
Technically, we had allocated 45 minutes for our breakout sessions today. I'll say as the chairperson, it sounds to me like a lot of these questions are beneficial to all of our groups. I'll make a suggestion that we extend our general session for another 15 minutes, which will still give us 30 minutes in breakout sessions. They did bring enough personnel to have somebody in each one of the breakout sessions to address issues specific. If I don't hear a big protest here, I'd like to let us continue in our general session for another 15 minutes so that we all get the benefit of hearing these questions and answers, because I think judging by the crowd reaction, it seems pretty useful. Okay, then we'll keep going for another 15 minutes. Thank you.
I appreciate that. My, oh my. Yeah, I appreciate that. We do too. Thanks. Yes. All right.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you and your personnel for the fantastic job. I mean, it's a very complex apparatus you're running there, and so we appreciate what you're doing. Also, I want to thank you that your operational philosophy includes safety, and that happens to be two of the things that I wanted to bring up to you. Previously, I had talked about the bus, coincidentally, that you used in the display. I don't know if you can pop that up right now or not, but I was looking at it as I'm driving, and I noticed that, yeah, if you can pop it up, you can. I noticed that the egress door in the middle, if you see that, it's on the left-hand side of the bus. It's on the wrong side of the bus. It's almost like if you drove on the left-hand side, it's for countries where you drive on the left-hand side. You're asking drivers to pull to the right if there's an emergency, right? So the emergency door should be so that students egress or exit the bus away from the traffic. Well, this particular bus has the egress door on the left-hand side, making the students come out in oncoming traffic. That's in a panic situation, could be disastrous. Secondly, the exit in the back is located over an engine, I think. Now, two things catch on fire in a vehicle: engines and brakes. So you're asking kids to probably go and maybe not use that one. You're gonna, again, that door becomes even more important. And thirdly, I'm about 5'9", 5'10". I think if I stand behind that bus, that window where you would exit comes about right here. A kindergartner, first grader may have trouble negotiating that distance, and he may exit that bus involuntarily. That means somebody would be pushing him. He'll land wrong, and other people will land. So you can see what I'm saying. Yeah. Based on that, I asked the department a while back, are they going to sell those buses off? Because it looks like it would be something good to sell off to a country where they drive on the opposite end. And I just wanted to bring that up to you because I couldn't live with myself if something happens and I didn't say this again. I don't know what the reasoning is for having the door where it's located.
Yeah. Well, in the exit door that we use twice a year by state law, every school, every bus has to have bus evacuations. And you're right, we go through there, the staff on the school ramps, they actually time them. How long does it take for the kids to get out? The kids are shown how to. They're supposed to sit their bottoms down and scoot off. The first two kids are usually the spotters, so they hold their hands and help them down. So there are 2 drills a year for that. I can see as far as the side entrance, and I'm looking over to Jared, who was a safety supervisor for years. Have anything to add?
Is he meaning the side door?
Yeah.
The side doors where the traffic would be coming if you know.
So when we pull off door side, now I know that's where they have it, and all 3 vendors have it there. We don't take them out the side doors for bus evacuations.
No. And, I mean, in these style buses, we're slowly but surely taking out of rotation anyways. We don't even purchase this style bus anymore. I know you're talking about the flat nose bus.
Right.
Yeah, the flat nose, yeah.
But we don't evacuate out that side, but that's only in the event of a serious emergency. And I understand what you're saying about evacuations and having to get out into oncoming traffic, but, you know, thank God, knock on wood, that we never had that situation happen. But these are slowly but surely being taken out of rotation.
That's right.
What?
Traffic shouldn't be going, traffic would be stopped.
You mean in the event of an evacuation?
In the event, and that's why it's on the other side. Basically, the side door is if a bus were to flip and it goes on the door side down, there is an evacuation route out.
Right.
If it flips on the other side, you still have that door coming out the front door and the back. But the back is what we train on.
And that back is over an engine.
Yeah.
It's a long drop. Can I suggest those buses be used for high schoolers? They can negotiate that, not in elementary schools? I mean, I don't know. You have a real tough job without me saying that, but just put it up there.
We don't have many. Those are the old, we haven't bought a pusher for a long, long time.
Okay.
So they are slowly being phased out. You mentioned about selling buses. We do that. Believe it or not, when we take them to auction, which used to be there at the Civic Center for years, but now off Alico Road, we get anywhere between $800 and $1,200 is all we get for a bus. So we get more value out of that by what we call cannibalizing this bus. So before we towed it down there, we would take the strobe light off, we would take the rims off the tire, we would go ahead and salvage parts off there because we can get about $13,000 worth of parts off that vehicle before we tow it and get it in there. And really, when I say we get between $800 and $1,200, that's the difference between towing a vehicle down there and driving a vehicle down there. So for us in the district, it is actually financially better for us to what we call cannibalizing, but really stripping them down, using the parts we can use, and then towing them down there to resell them.
And you're doing a great job in this, but
I'm gonna have to ask you to I have a set of people waiting, so we'll have to move on to the next question. I just want to ask everybody to introduce yourself and say your school before you ask your question. Thank you.
She was waiting first.
Am I next?
Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Chris Siebenaller. I'm an elementary principal at Gateway in the East Zone, and I'm here representing all principals. And yes, there are times that we do have transportation frustrations, and I can definitely empathize with River Hall, but I do have to say on behalf of the East Zone that Jared has always been very responsive. We keep track of our times diligently. Our bus drivers know we keep track of our times. We have a chart, and then we enter it in the system, and when we have a group of buses that are not coming on time or leaving late or arriving late, I immediately email Jared. I put all that data in there, and I get a response from him right away. I am on the bus ramp. I don't do parent pickup like a lot of principals do. I do the bus ramp because then I can take care of problems. The kids know that I'm there. The bus drivers know I'm there. I thank you for acknowledging that they definitely do need training. They are not degreed employees, and so they do need training when it comes to classroom management on the bus. However, we have to work in partnership with them. And what I want them to focus on is being on the road, watching the cars. It's very difficult driving in our conditions. And in the East Zone, there's a lot of construction, and that definitely affects the delays. But I do have to put a positive, and Jared did not pay me to say that, but my experiences with him have been responsive and positive. So thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Danielle Crockett. I'm from Varsity Lakes Middle School. So I just have a couple of things. Back to the app, there's got to be a way to get updates into that, though, for the fact if you have a sub bus, because I can tell you last week, I looked to see where my daughter's bus was, and it said it was 2 stops over from where it should be. I got no text that morning saying there's going to be a sub bus. I literally had to call, which luckily I got an answer, because I tell you, calling the East Zone is a bit of a struggle because normally you don't get an answer when you call, and even if you leave a message, you don't get a call back. But they did answer that morning, which was nice because I didn't have to drive my daughter to school. I was able to find out that a sub bus was coming and it was this number. But there's got to be a way to get parents that information. I know it's tough because you have so many, but I mean, some parents don't sit with their kids, and if their kids miss their bus because that information isn't being texted, called, emailed, anything, there's no way for them to know, and then their kid's just screwed for the day because either their parent has to leave work, go get them, or something else. So that's something you guys need to try to figure out to work on that. Also, dropping students off, the sub bus drivers, are they given the actual routes and told where to drop the students off?
Yeah, not only the routes, but also the names and the addresses of the kids on there. So all that information they have.
I've had several times where I live off of Palm Beach Boulevard and Hawks Preserve. So the bus turns into Hawks Preserve to pick up the students. Most of the buses for the East Zone come into the neighborhood. They don't pick the students up on 80. I've had several times where my daughters had a sub bus driver in the afternoon, and instead of pulling into the neighborhood, they're lazy, they stay on 80. It's dangerous. I mean, there's so many accidents, especially right there at that intersection. I can say for a fact, my son was in one last week right there. But they've dropped her off there on the side of 80. And I mean, I've told my kids, if your bus stops there, tell them you're refusing to get off the bus. They need to pull into the neighborhood to drop you off. I mean, it has to be made clear that they need to drop them off where they're supposed to be dropped off. Just because they don't want to waste a couple of minutes coming in, too bad. I mean, that's safety for my kid, and you guys talk about safety. Let's make sure the safety's really in place.
And you say that's what subs more than the regular
It's happened
driver?
probably 5 times this year, and I've told the school,
Yeah.
I don't waste time with calling the bus barn anymore because I don't, like I said, I don't get a response, I don't get an answer, so I go directly to the school.
Yeah. Well, and most definitely, what the drivers should do, if they, and I'm going to tell you, subs struggle. There's 261 routes out there, so when they show up in the morning at 5, they're given a route sheet and said, you know, have at it. And they've got to go, and they're trying to read the route sheets. I can tell you, believe it or not, middle school is a little bit worse than the high schools as far as being helpful. Because the middle school kids love to, I'll help you, and they take them right to their stop first when it's really the 5th stop, and then the driver has to come on back. So sub drivers, if you have a sub driver, we've calculated it's going to be about 25, 30 minutes longer unless they are familiar with the route or the area. But the way it is now, we have people actually live out in Alva, and they come all the way down to the South Zone, and when they get here, we give them a route that says, here, go do Bonita Elementary School for us. And they're thinking, I've been in Bonita twice my entire life. So they're trying to read as far as 300 feet, take a right, 100 feet, take a left. It's dark. So I would definitely advise the kids, tell that driver, hey, the stop is inside. What they're trained to do is they would then call that into the dispatch and say, hey, where's the stops at Hawks Preserve? And the dispatchers say you need to go in and turn around and come back. So yeah, don't have them get off the bus if that's not their stop.
I've never let my kids get off. I've made them call me if there was an issue.
Okay, good.
Hi, my name is Shannon Shull. I'm the bus ramp supervisor at Pine Island Elementary. And I'm very fortunate because we only have a few buses out there, but we deal with our obstacles, especially during season, because we have a lot of traffic trying to get in and on and off the island. I've also been at a big school where we've had a lot of buses, so I've seen both sides of it. I just wanted to maybe ask the question or offer the suggestion of, I know we have the Where's My Bus for parents. Would there be a possibility of getting one for administration or bus ramp supervisors so that we could see where the buses are and maybe make more informed decisions as to helping transportation, trying to maybe split buses or get coverage? Or I've even had the situation where if I get a hold of transportation and can find out that the buses are going to be 30 to 40 minutes late, I can send a school messenger, and a lot of the parents come and pick up their kids, which makes it easier for me to split buses because I have less students to transport.
The answer is yes, yes, and yes. We're actually piloting here in the South Zone. We've got Three Oaks and Mr. Buchanan. I don't mean to wake you up, but it's Three Oaks Middle School, Ray Pottorf, and Heights Elementary?
Correct.
There we go. So yes, they actually, the administrators do have it, so they're working with it on the ramp now. They're having the same problems, to be perfectly honest, that the parents do. When it works great, and people love it. However, when we cover with 3 or 4, they're saying the same thing. Hey, a bus just showed up on our bus ramp. So yes, we're working on that.
Okay, great. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Roger. Tanya Petro from James Stevens in the East Zone, but my question actually stems from a parent issue in the West Zone. So you've taken care of several things for me and gotten stuff handled that I wasn't happy with. I had a similar safety issue where we had recently moved off of Del Prado, and my child was dropped off on the other side of Del Prado, about an hour walk from our new house, where she had no idea. And it was very, very traumatic. The answer for me, because I'm an employee, I was able to get a waiver that says drop her off at my school. Don't ever do that again. But my question is there an actual, you said that you train the drivers that they shouldn't be doing that, and then she asked about, well, are the sub-drivers given that? So I'm guessing, judging by we didn't see that driver very long after that, that might have been something that was handled in an efficient way. But what is the policy, and does that policy change per grade levels? Because my issue was that my daughter was in elementary, but it was a K-8 school. It was North Academy. So does the policy, as far as the driver ensuring that the student is only getting off at their stop, does that change from elementary to middle to high school, and also Part B or C or whatever I'm on right now, specific to James Stevens, and that's a different demographic? We have so many language learners and kids that, honest to goodness, have no idea. They move around so often that stuff doesn't look familiar to them. They're moving again. So what can I take back to my school to ensure, to let the parents know, like, this is the policy, or this is what's enforced, or this is what they train the drivers to do? How can I communicate that?
Not only do we train them, but we have what's called the managerial guideline, also board approved, and they were collectively bargained, and basically collectively bargained with the union. So actually, an unauthorized bus stop, which is what that is considered, depending on the severity of it, yes, very well could be termination. That's part of.
My daughter was forced off the bus, and my son, but again, that was dealt with, and we.
Did you see that driver again?
I did not, no.
Okay. And I can't say anything due to.
Okay.
But you can probably read into it. So yes, there are things, it is documented as far as what is an unauthorized bus stop and the consequences. And obviously, every case is different. However, it doesn't matter if it's kindergarten or a 12th grader. It is the same set of rules, set of guidelines that we use. Now, obviously, to be honest, kindergarten and first, second grade, the younger kids obviously are much more traumatic when it happens.
Yeah.
High school, believe it or not, well, I'm sure you'll believe it. Parents will say, hey, my son never, got off the bus. I was waiting to pick him up. We had a dentist appointment. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Well, by the time we track him down, he got off with a friend. He never got on the bus. He's watching the baseball game. He's doing 101 other things. So we don't hear too much about the high school kids, or really even middle school, as much as we do elementary. And obviously it has to do with the ages of them. But yeah, the gamut as far as consequences go, termination absolutely is considered in all those cases.
Well, and just to give you some kudos, as a teacher, I rarely get a substitute who will do it exactly what the specifications are that the teacher left. So I understand that, and the plight about the hours and stuff like that. Are we considering at all more of the neighborhood school thing, or is this just, to keep things diverse, we're going to stick with this huge busing plan?
This is the easiest question for me all night. That's above my pay grade. So yes, that's the easy way out. As far as we're concerned, I can tell you this. I know school choice is a big deal, and people like to come after transportation and said, oh my goodness, your transportation costs because of this school choice. But I have a school-based background, and I can tell you this. We've been audited on many occasions. It is cheaper to transport these kids to these schools with the special programs than it would be to offer all these programs at each school. So the IB program, we have one in each zone, but we would not be able to have IB at every single school or the arts at every single school. So really, it gives our students, our kids, more of an opportunity to choose what is best for them. It individualizes their needs. So while school choice does add, obviously, I'm not gonna sit up here and say it doesn't, it does add to the cost of transportation. In the whole scheme of things, it's cheaper to transport the kids than to actually replicate the programs.
Okay.
So, no, I don't see where it's gonna do something, and that's just me off the record. People in IT, take that off the record.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi. I'm only going to be a second. I am Dawn Beckman. I'm an assistant principal at Gulf Elementary in the West Zone. And I am here actually just to give Mr. Perdue a really big kudos because he has done an excellent job of really helping our zone. And every time I need him, he is on my cell phone. We text each other. He answers my phone's first ring. He answers, what can I do to help you? How can I fix the problem? And I just wanted you guys to know that he's really doing a great job, and we appreciate him. So thank you.
You're gonna have to buy your sister dinner later.
There's more chocolate in the back, so.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:22. I'd like everybody to go to their breakout sessions so that you do have that opportunity, which is something we understand. But here's what I'd like to suggest. Again, I'm going to do this with absent strong objections. What I'm going to suggest is that we don't come back and do breakout reports. We will collect the information from your chairs, and we will put all that in the minutes, and we will share the breakout reports through the minutes tonight. That way you'll get a little bit of extra time so you can stay in your breakout sessions up until I guess 7:58. Technically, we have to come back to adjourn. So we'll just come back very quickly and adjourn. We won't do the breakout reports, but that'll give you extra time, so come back at 7:58, and we'll be here very briefly just to go to the order and adjourn. Thank you.
Back to you, just in case I get any questions.
Just say it, everybody can hear you from now.
We're tired of hearing you. Try the other one.
A motion to end the meeting.
Happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Andy Erickson.
Okay. I don't think we have Cassandra, but we'll get, oh, there she is. Eric made a motion to adjourn and Andy seconded it. Cassandra, you got that? Eric and Andy.
Eric and Andy, perfect.
Got it?
Yep, we're good.
All right, all those in favor? Have a wonderful night, everybody.